Hello everybody, The Worm here, back with some Raging Loop. Let's have a chat. We've got a few things to talk about before going forward. Three things, actually. Three main topics I want to get to before moving on. First of all, sorry, I have a list here. So we're just going to go down the list. We learned quite a lot of things last time. One of the major things, I think, is the confirmation of a few identities. Okay, so of course we had Mochi. The three people here I'm referring to are Mochi, Haru, and Mamiya. I think we got some pretty firm confirmation on them. And let's get into that, shall we? Mochi's obvious. We're the snake. We wrote his name. We got the answer. And Haru had been killed by the wolves. That most likely makes her a human, and we'll get into that a bit more later. And third, we got Mamiya, who has also been killed, but it seems that she has been killed by the corruption. And to elaborate that on a little bit, this was brought up specifically by... Let me find it. Yeah, so Unknown Pitfall specifically brought this up. How we know for a fact that the wolves are the only ones allowed to run around at night. So presumably if Hisako Mamiya had been walking around at night and she got killed by the corruption, well, that seems to be a pretty convincing argument that she was in fact a human, and thus, for me, was probably the Badger in that instance. So, yes, that is the deal with Mamiya there. So that's very important information, of course. Let's move on to Haru, because Haru's a very interesting case. Haru seems to most likely be a human at this point. Okay? Even if there's been some weird stuff going on with her this route. I think it's pretty convincing. I think her position is pretty convincing. I had asked last time whether or not it was possible for wolves to, kill other wolves, I didn't really expand upon it that much, but I was just curious because part of my thinking, up till last night was that, well, Haru seemed kind of suspicious to me. She's saying some weird things during the feasts. Maybe she's another wolf, but now she's been murdered. So what's the likelihood on that, basically, on a wolf-on-wolf incident? And I got two responses on that. One from Trapped in Paradise and another from Amber. Trapped in Paradise basically said how even if such a thing were possible, the way these games are structured, it makes it extremely unlikely that the wolves would ever do such a thing, because it would just, no matter what potential benefit there may be, it puts them at a serious disadvantage to lower their number by one, even just one. And that argument seemed to make sense to me. Am I recording this? Yeah, good. Now, Amber had another point, and this wasn't to refute the previous point, but just gave an example. Apparently, I don't know this for myself, but basically, there was an example given of a game, and under specific circumstances, so a specific rule set, under specific circumstances, there was a time when the wolves killed one of their own, and managed to convince the rest of the group that they were, I believe, what is in this game, in Raging Loop, is basically the snake, I think. Or something like that. One of the very important guardians. And because they were able to convince people that that person was that, the real snake, I'm just using Raging Loop terms, was, when they tried to speak out, were not listened to. And thus the wolves managed to control the conversation, and that eventually led to them winning the game. So that sounds very interesting, and it's certainly interesting to hear that what I mentioned last time is possible. But again, that was a very specific set of circumstances that led to that scenario. And certainly here we are not in the same. You can't replicate what that story is here. We're 2 nights in and this is happening. So, while that was an interesting anecdote, I don't think it's necessarily relevant for where we are now. So, basically, my conclusion from hearing all that is, I'm pretty sure Haru's a human. That's, we have to make a call here, and so I'm gonna make the call. Haru's probably a human. Was a human, pardon me. And of course, we don't need to go over Mochi. We got the confirmation there on him. So that's the discussion on Mamiya down, the discussion on Haru down. The last thing I want to do before moving on is to just take stock on where we are in terms of the game. And so I went ahead and wrote down all of our villagers and just categorize them. And I kind of want to go over that with you guys because pretty fascinating results thus far. So, okay, I have the list here. And this is, I'm separating this into my thoughts on, again, if I have to make a call right now, here's my call, okay? So first, I have the human row, the wolf row, and then the suspect row of these names here, okay? So I'm just going to list these out. For humans, I have Yasunaga, Kanzo, Meiko, Haruaki, Rikako, Chiemi, Tai, Haru, Takumi, Yoshitsugu. For wolves, I have Mochi, and for suspects, I have Old Man, Nasato, and Kaori. That's where we are right now. I think that's everyone. I didn't miss anyone, did I? No. Oh wait, did I write down Chiemi? Yes, I did. Chiemi's in the human row. So, just to explain some of that, some of those, and in human, if I put them in the human row, that means they're innocent. The only, I didn't write down Mamiya. Mamiya goes in the human row. But of course, that's with the caveat that she was the badger. But she's still in the human row, because that's what we're thinking as if we're making the call right now. Okay, so just to explain a bit more of that, we have, part of what I'm using here is Haruaki's own reasoning, okay? I'm trusting Haruaki in his thoughts on this. And so his thoughts cover my decision to put Chiemi, Rikako, and Meiko in the human row, because it was his thoughts on Chiemi's strategy of self-sacrifice in the first feast, and then Rikako and her strategy with Meiko is what led him to think they were innocent as well. And of course we know Tai was falsely accused. Yoshitsugu, he's acting the same as he did in the first route, so he's probably still the same. Yeah, Kanzo and Yasunaga don't need any further explanation. They're the monkeys. Takumi, we checked, we know is human. Absolutely. Haru has been killed by the wolves, so she's probably human. And I think that covers all the humans. Mochi, absolutely, we know for sure is a wolf. So here's the crazy thing now. Oops, sorry. Our 3 suspects have been narrowed down. Our last 3 suspects are Old Man, Misato, and Kaori. So let's think about that for a second. Old Man's just a wild card, so it's difficult to reason about him. So really, the only ones we can reason about are Misato and Kaori. Now, Kaori did the weird thing where she voted for Takumi and said, you know, to try and bring him to his senses in the second feast. I thought that was kind of weird. In the first feast, she asked Yasunaga who to vote for, and I do think that was in character, but I thought it could, at the time, thought it could be something she could do to cover for herself as a wolf. So I don't think it's out there that she could be a wolf. Misato did vote for us once or twice. I can't remember how many times. So obviously gunning for us is not so good. But I'm not sure he's done anything that crazy as of yet. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Part of me wants to... Again, if I have to call it right now, maybe Kaori... I feel more sure about Kaori for some reason. I'd say Kaori, maybe, and then either Misato or Old Man. I'm not sure which, but I put Kaori first on my suspicion. I guess Kaori, then Misato, then Old Man. I guess I put them in that order for my guess. So that's a pretty crazy team there. Mochi and then these 3. But yeah, I think that's where we are right now. I did also have one more thing to comment on. I was a bit confused on why Haru was chosen as a target. And I'm still not sure. But I'd like to put forward the idea that if we recall, we remember Kanzo was targeted as the first target in the last big route, the Yomi route, because he was acting different than normal. And so that led Yasunaga to suppose he had a guardian and was keeping it a secret. So I want to throw out the suggestion that maybe Haru was acting a bit different than normal. And of course, who better to notice that than Mochi? Because, you know, we had the whole thing last time with this weird love triangle. It wasn't really a triangle. It was a weirder shape. Because Mochi likes Haru likes Yasunaga, Yasunaga likes Chiemi. Haru disregards her romantic feelings, and so she doubles down on friendship with Yasunaga, so she's trying to get Yasunaga with Chiemi, and Mochi is left out in the cold, so to speak, because Haru does not acknowledge his feelings, I guess, and he doesn't really speak up about it. So that's basically a long way to say Mochi would know what Haru's like. And she has been very quiet, but she's normally pretty subdued anyway, so hard to say. I just wanted to throw that out there. Maybe, for whatever reason, the wolves thought Haru's behavior was strange, and so thought maybe she had a guardian. Because it seems in this instance we were able to throw off the wolves with our Takumi vote. So that's where we are. That's all I wanted to talk about, I think. Sorry if that was a bit rambly. Just a lot of stuff happened last time, really, when you think about it. So I thought I wanted to get all that straight, or as straight as I could, before moving on. Moving on. Let me take a drink of water now. Oh yeah, Gonzo's missing. And he has a gun. And his granddaughter died. So, whereas Takumi seemed to be the dangerous berserker last time, we may be dealing with an even more dangerous berserker this time. So let's all try to survive, shall we? Yeah, let's keep going. One more check. Okay.
いつものおやっさんなら銃を人に向けることは絶対しねえ。
He's like a different person with a mist around, though, he added. Kanzo-san had already pointed his gun at people. Takumi-san didn't want to see Kanzo-san as a threat, but it was clear he didn't trust him completely. His blind faith in the locals had vanished overnight. Oh, we did also have the big scene with Takumi and Haruaki. And Haruaki was able to not prove his innocence, but convinced Takumi to take a chance on him. It probably wasn't virtuous in the general sense, but in the current situation, that naivete had been his only weakness. We went to Tai-san's house, passing the supposedly empty construction site along the way. We still couldn't find Kanzo-san or anything out of the ordinary. After that, we went back to the plaza. In the dining hall, we found Yoshitsugu-kun and the women, who were now dressed. They looked worried, but aside from that, everything was normal there too. We left Kinosuke-shi and Yasunaga-kun there as some extra defense. Yasunaga-kun was still in a state of shock, and everyone wordlessly agreed that he should be with his family now. Then we went to the north, downhill, but we still couldn't find anything. Takumi-san then parted some bushes for some reason, and as it turned out, the old wolf guy lived around here. This made me realize I hadn't seen his place yet. Once we arrived there, my first impression was that it didn't even look like a house. It was more like a wooden shed or storage room with frames that were barely stable and a door that didn't seem to fit properly. It honestly didn't seem like it would qualify as shelter. It wasn't all that much better than the outhouse I had hidden in. Around it, there were a lot of useless things, like small pieces of cloth and rusty farming tools. Apparently, he had a tendency to go around Yasumizu and collect or steal these sorts of things. He wasn't in the hut. The open door made us nervous, but there was no dead body inside. After some more searching, we found the old wolf guy laughing around the pine. He joined us. We now knew the whereabouts of everyone except Kanzo-san, and the body count remained at 2. We then checked Kanzo-san's house again, and it was still empty. And so we returned to the dining hall. Despite the tension, Kaori-san began making food. Well, it was important to stay well fed, so no one grumbled. It was rice gruel again, but no one complained about that either, and just ate up. The students in Chemi didn't seem to have much of an appetite, though. We then talked about what we'd do next. It was about 7 o'clock. The fact that none of us had seen Kanzo-san yet was unnerving. Takumi-san insisted we go searching again, but the others began to think that was a waste of time. Some assumed he had either left the settlement, got stuck in some pond or field, or was taken by the corruption. Though those were all major. Though those were all major problems that would require us to find him ASAP, most just didn't want to continue this. It seemed to me that, while Kanzo-san may have had a lot of influence here, and many depended on him, a lot of villagers had a latent aversion to him. In the end, though, we just couldn't ignore the possibility that he might have been lurking somewhere with his gun in hand. Once again, for the first time this loop anyway, a search party was sent out. Takumi-san, Chemi, Mochi, and I all went around the misty settlement, but we couldn't find him.
何なのかな、一体。
わからね
え。なんか無駄なことしてる気がしてきた。
I had no evidence, but I felt the same way. Soon enough, we just went back to the plaza.
メイコちゃん。
It was a while since I'd last spoken to her. We hadn't talked once yesterday, and it seemed like it'd be a while until she found out my name.
どうしたの？リカコさんは？
お姉ちゃん、難しいお話してるから、お外で遊んでた。
何やってるのよ、食堂は。この子外に出して何かあったらどうする気なの？
メイコちゃんもタエバー投票組だしね。
ね
それで、どうしたの？
え、おじいちゃん、いたよ。
You did? What?
おやっさん、何やってんだ？
Uh-oh. He'd been right under our noses. Specifically, the hall where we held the feasts. Is that above? Well, he said under our noses. Is that below the... Actually, it's weird that I don't know this, actually. Is the chamber where we hold the feasts, is that above the dining hall, below the dining hall, or is that like a similar building adjacent to the dining hall? For some reason, I'm not sure I know that. He was exactly where he would be during the feast. Ooh. He's getting ready in advance, huh? Right next to him, there was an empty bottle of divine sake.
Kanzo じいちゃん、はるちゃんのこと。
Ooh, not good, Chami.
言うな。
Be very careful here. He pushed away the bottle and stood up. He didn't seem the least bit drunk. In fact, his eyes were even sharper than usual.
春はもうおらん。
You know, upon reflection, upon additional reflection, I guess Haru being gone means we won't get any more comments from God, quote unquote. So that's interesting.
あとは宴を終わらせる。もうそれだけよ。
And you are very intent on doing that, I see. In other words, the daily morning patrols he was always doing were for Haru-chan's sake. So now that she was gone, this was the only place for him.
それで、待ってるっていうのかよ。
He replied with silence and sat down again, bringing his hunting rifle closer to him.
今から全員呼んでくる。
Oh, we getting started already?
まだ時間あろうが。
あんたをここで待たせてると全員不安があるんだよ。
知らん。
銃、よこせよ。戻してくっから。
戻れ。
I kind of believe him, Takumi. I think you should probably drop it.
銃をよこせ。
Uh-oh. Instead of replying, Kanzo-san took his gun and aimed it at Takumi-san.
食堂に戻って昼まで待て。
Takumi, I think we should do what he says. This scene seemed symbolic to me. Kanzo-san wanted to leave by force. and demonstrated it with his killing instrument. At this point, no one could get in the way of him leading the feast. But then, something I didn't expect happened. Oh my goodness. It was right when Kanzo-san seemed to have finished talking. Takumi grabbed the front of the gun with his hand and pushed it aside, took a step forward, and punched Kanzo-san right in the face. I also didn't expect the old man to instantly retaliate. In less than a second, Kanzo-san let go of the gun and threw a punch at Takumi-san's face. Blood gushed out of Takumi-san's face. Blood gushed out as Takumi-san's face was distorted in pain. However, that wasn't enough to take him out. A slap from the left hand, the base of the palm cleanly hit Kanzo's face, and the old man was thrown backwards. He hit the wall behind him with a loud crunch, but even then, Kanzo-san stood up, clearly ready for more. It was an opening. I grabbed the hunting rifle and gave it to Chiemi. Things were going so fast that I forgot I wasn't supposed to know that she knew her way around guns yet.
Chi! Barashite furo! Chiemi!
But Takumi-san understood my intention. Chiemi turned around. Kanzo-san tried to chase after her, but Takumi-san, Mochi, and I held him back.
気持ちはわかるが、猟銃は卑怯だぜ、おやっさん。
卑怯で何が悪い?
Well, that was ballsy, but Takumi did it, so well done, I suppose.
誰も信じられん。休みずは守らねばならん。他に何のしようがある？え？
誰も信じられねえことはねえ。
Takumi-san glanced at me, but I couldn't agree with him in this situation. I could reveal myself to Kanzo-san, but not in front of Mochi. Even if someone had been eavesdropping on us, when I told Takumi-san, it still wasn't the time to reveal it.
一つだけ確実なことがあります。ハルちゃんが狙われた理由は明らかにあなたを突き崩すためです。
Okay.
牧島さん。
So my earlier thought that maybe Mochi noticed Haru being out of character, that's not what Haruaki looked for here. So, it was to get to him. Interesting that the wolves didn't just kill him. We did hear earlier on that there was a potential strategy, where the wolves would keep Yasunaga and Kanzo alive in order for disagreements in leadership to fracture the villager group. So maybe this is a further step on that plan. Kill Haru-chan and sort of destabilize Kanzo, and that will lead him wanting to rule with an iron fist, get into conflicts with people. I guess that's it.
あなたもそれは重々ご承知でしょうが、だからってこんな形で締め付けを強めれば、狼の思うツボだ。
I hadn't considered that. Yeah. It makes some sense. Yeah.
断言するな。
断言しますよ。事実としてみんなあなたを怖がり始めている。
そそのかしたのはお前らじゃろうが。
あんたが銃さえ持ち込んでなきゃ、疑って悪かったって謝る気だった。
They then fell silent and glared at each other.
モッチ、みんなを呼んできてくれ。もう宴を始めてしまうべきだ。
Okay. An early feast.
そうかもね。じっちゃん一人で置いとくのもなんだし。
Kanzo-san grunted, displeased, but offered no more protest toward starting the feast. I just realized I could have. Remember, we had the first choice of the first feast Excuse me, the night, not the feast. As the snake, I could have chosen to do Mamiya, Takumi, or Kyo, Nosato. So I could technically have the information to cross him off my list if I really wanted to. You know? That would leave only Kaori and Old Man, which is crazy. Maybe that should mean that he's more likely to be human then? Maybe? Or is that meta reasoning? Is that meta reasoning on... Because the question that arose just now was, would they reveal a wolf that early? Not sure. But for some reason that wants me to suspect... For some reason that makes me want to suspect Nosato less. So I'm almost feeling like I want to say it's Mochi, Kaori, and Old Man. Unless, no matter how unlikely, I guess there could be potentially a strange 5D chess move where killing Haru as a wolf. No. I don't think I'm gonna consider that. Let's not do that. Okay. Honestly, there was no real reason why the time for when the feast started had been decided when it was. Kanzo-san was only doing it to save time as the first... Excuse me, Kanzo-san was only doing it on the same time as the first day. The fact that he insisted on the usual time so strongly that he brandished his gun over it made me feel like he was more obsessed with control over the situation than actually thinking things through. At the base of it all, there was mistrust. He couldn't trust anyone, so he simply repeated whatever had brought him success so far. It'd be good if that led to our victory. But the feast really had to be approached like a game. There was no single way to win, and there was competition. If you could read the enemy's strategy, you could also outplay them. That was significantly easier for the wolves. It was best to assume they understood exactly how Kanzo-san thought. That was why they targeted Haru-chan. It was necessary to rethink our own strategy. Yeah, because let's say I go with Mochi, Old Man, Kaori. That's all well and good for me to make that, guess. But the challenge for Haruaki here is how do we communicate that and then convince people of that, That's the big thing here. So even if I'm going to be able to guess the suspects, yeah, I definitely am not sure I'd be able to do the work necessary to get that through. It would all depend on how today's feast went. Especially for myself, since I was the snake and had to survive no matter what.
全員に杯は回ったな。
Oh man, what do I want to do here? It would be a bit of a smaller episode if I stopped here. Hey, I want to ask people. Anyone who's listening here. I want your opinion. Yep, that's right, you who's listening right now. Do you prefer... I've always wanted to keep my videos between a half hour and an hour. I don't want to go over an hour. Now, will that mean I won't ever go over an hour? No. If I'm in the middle of a scene and I have the time, sure, I may go over an hour a bit. That's all right. But I didn't want it to be too short either. So here's the question: do you prefer if more videos are toward an hour or a bit shorter? You know, I'm still relatively new at this kind of thing, so I looked at the YouTube channel thing, and it has this analytics page, and you know, there's charts and numbers, but I'm not sure I'm interested in decoding all that, deciphering it. So I thought I'd just ask, what do you guys think? Do you like the longer sort of videos or the shorter ones? You know? Because I kind of want to, you know, feasts in this game are pretty momentous occasions here. And they usually last for a while, so I kind of want to keep it to its own thing. I think that's what I'll do, even if that makes this episode a shorter one. Yeah, that's what I'll do, I think. And yeah, so just in closing, if I have to make a call right now, my wolf guesses are Mochi, Kaori, Old Man. That's it. That's what I'm gonna go for. It's a bit of meta reasoning on the Nasato thing, so obviously I can't be sure on him. I could be sure if I could load the decision of the first feast and find out immediately. Should I do that? I don't know. It feels like cheating almost, but yeah, I don't know. We'll think about it, right? In any case, I've been the Worm. This has been Raging Loop. Really, I mean, there hasn't been a part of my playthrough thus far where I haven't been enjoying it, I feel. So this is just, it's all been great, and I hope it continues to be that way. And again, anyway, I hope you're all well. See you next time.